of all of the money you sent me, I'm still living out on my own. Michael has built himself a fine house. Bridget's daughters are grown. Thank you for sending your family picture. They're lovely young women and men. Why don't you think about coming to visit? A joy to see you again. Thank you all for coming tonight. Let's have some fun. Near Bainbridge town in the county down, one morning last July, down a boarding green came sweet Colleen, and she smiled as she passed me by. She looked so neat from her two bare feet to the sheen of her nut brown hair. Coaxing elf had to pinch meself to be sure I was really there. As she onward sped and I shook my head, I gazed with a feeling queer, and I said, says I to her passer-by, who's the maid with the nut brown hair? Smiled at me with pride, says he, she's the gem of Ireland's crown. Young Rosie McGann from the banks of the Bann, she's a star of the county down. Bantry Bay to Daddy Quay, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen, met at the county down. I've travelled a bit, but I never was a hit till my roving career began. Fair and square, I surrendered there to the charms of young Rose McCann. I'd a heart to let, no tenant yet did I meet with a shawl on her gown. In she went, I asked no rent from the start of the county down. Bantry Bay to Daddy Quay, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen, met at the county down. Bantry Bay to Daddy Quay, from Galway to Dublin town. No maid I've seen like the sweet Colleen that I met at the county down. Thank you. thank you. Thank you for coming out tonight. The first one was a traditional Irish tune called Start of the County Down. The Irish folks will know that one. The second one is a traditional English tune. We know it for most of the year as Green Sleeves. We take it out at Christmas time. By the way, I was supposed to be here at Christmas time. I apologize for not being here at Christmas time. I'll make it up to you before I leave, I promise. It is. I know at least a couple of you had reservations and come see me at Christmas time, and it was the first time in decades that I had to cancel anything. It was just, something hit me. It hit me really hard. But I'm here tonight, I feel good, we're going to have some fun. So at Christmas time, we know it as What Child Is This? And it's essentially the same melody, and it's essentially the same rhythm. So if I had actually been here in December and played it, we would have called it What Child Is This? But tonight we're going to call it Green Sleeves. So we have ticked off 2 boxes. We have ticked off Ireland and England. We're getting the countries out of the way quickly tonight as we run through the Celtic lands. And that leads me around to Scotland. I am a Scot. I am a Scot. I was raised in a very, very Scottish household. My dad was a drummer in a bagpipe band. So when I was a child, when I was growing up, the only things that played in the house were bagpipe records and Scottish folk song records and Harry Lauder and all of those kinds of things. So I learned a lot of the music that you're going to hear tonight. I first learned as a child when I was growing up. And it was good. It kind of got ingrained in me that way. And those of you that have children know that you raised your children pretty much the way that you were raised because that's what you knew how to do. So when I had my 3 boys, that's how I raised them. We had moved on at that point from records to cassette tapes. So in the car with the cassette tapes and the bagpipe music and the Scottish folk songs, and off we went on the family vacations with the bagpipes playing through the car. What adolescent boy wouldn't like that? The way I was raised, I didn't know any better. Oh, last year, my birthday rolled around. Happens every year, whether you like it or not. And I went out to the mailbox, and in the mailbox was a small package from one of my sons who now lives in South Carolina. And my first thought was, that's really nice. He remembered Dad on his birthday. So I went in the house and I put it on the counter and I opened up the package, and inside that package was a smaller box. And in the smaller box was a test kit from Ancestry.com. So I thought about that for a moment, and then I called my son and I said, "Thank you for remembering me on my birthday. That was very kind of you. What's the point?" And he said, "Well, the point is this, Dad." He said, "When we were growing up, we had to listen to bagpipe music and Scottish folk songs and Scottish this and Scottish that, and you even had a Scottish flag hanging at the house and yada, yada, yada. So now we're going to find out exactly how Scottish you really are." Now, I was okay with that because I had an uncle who, prior to the days when you could do this on the internet, actually went to Scotland and ran around for a couple of months going from village to village and looking in the census records and all of that. And he had tracked us back into the 1500s somewhere. So I was okay with this test. And I will tell you that I sit here before you tonight, and the wise people at Ancestry.com tell me that I'm 83% Scottish. I have no idea how they arrived at that number, but that's their number, not mine. Take it. Those of you who were parents will know how much fun that phone call was when I called my son and the test results. But in the middle of the 1800s in Scotland, there was a period of time that we now know as the Highland Clearances. And the Highland Clearances came about because in the middle of Scotland, all of the land from pretty much the middle of Scotland north and out into the outer islands was owned by a small handful of landowners. And they owned tracts of land that were hundreds of thousands of acres. They were just massive tracts of land. And they broke them into smaller pieces of land that were known as crofts. And the people that lived there were known as crofters, just like the sharecroppers were here. The crofters lived on a small piece of land, and they would raise vegetables or animals. They would do something with the land in order to sustain themselves and their families, and then every year they would go back to the landowner and pay him a tax or a fee for the use of the land. That system worked very well for hundreds of years, until the middle of the 1800s, when the landowners got together and figured out that one big piece of land was worth more to them financially than thousands of small pieces of land. So we just need to somehow get rid of the people that are living there, and we can kind of consolidate our lands once more. Back then, you could enlist the aid of the British Army to help you do things. So they brought in the British Army, and the British Army attacked the crofters. Some of them resisted, fought, and they were killed. Many of them took off up into the highlands and just disappeared and probably popped up somewhere else and started a new life in another place. And many of them were captured. The ones that were captured were put on a ship and brought across the ocean. Many of those ships first hit land in what we know today as the maritime provinces of Canada. If you go up to the maritime provinces today, you will find a lot of people of Scottish descent up there. That's how they got there. Many of the ships came across, went up the Cape Fear River into the port of Wilmington, North Carolina. Those people got off the boats and went up into the Appalachian Mountains. If you go up into the Appalachian Mountains today, you will find a lot of people of Scottish descent there. That's how they got there. And that is how I ended up in Clinton, Massachusetts tonight. I tied it all together, didn't I? My great-great-grandparents came in the Highland Clearances. They came to America. And so that's kind of how I ended up here. So, as with so many things that happened in Celtic history and in the Celtic lands, the way that they memorialized it or recorded the event was somebody wrote a song about it. This is a song about the Highland Clearances. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, Bonnie babe. Once our valleys were ringing with the sound of the children singing. Now she bleeds late in the evening. Sheilings lie empty and broken. Hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, Bonnie babe. We stood with heads bowed in prayer while factors laid the cottages bare. The flames, the fires, the clear mountain air. Many were dead by the morning. Where was our proud island metal, our men once so feared in battle, now stand cowed, huddled like cattle, waiting to be shipped o'er the ocean. No use pleading or praying, now gone, gone, all hopes of staying. Hush, hush, the anchor's weighing. Don't cry in your sleep, Bonnie babe. Oh, 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 hush, hush, time to be sleeping. Hush, hush, dreams come creeping. Dreams of peace and of freedom. Don't cry in your sleep, Bonnie babe. That was cheery, eh? No? No, it wasn't, but as the gentleman and I were discussing earlier, we tend to think of Celtic music as the fiddle tunes that roll by at a couple hundred beats a minute, or the bang your glass on the bar and spill the beer all over your arm songs. And those are all really good things. But there's a whole lot more to it than that. And there's a whole lot of history, and that's kind of what we're going to do tonight. Well, thank you for being here. In 1851, Michael Considine was born. Michael Considine was born in County Clare, Ireland, at a little village at a rise in the road, literally, a little crossroads village known as Spancel Hill. Spancel Hill in 1851 was kind of a happening place, and in fact, they had this big horse event there every year, some kind of big horse show or horse fair or something was held there. And it was held every year on the 24th of June, every year. Spancel Hill does not really exist as a metropolis anymore. Every year on June 24th, they get together where Spancel Hill used to be, and they still have a horse fair of some sort there on that spot. So that was really very cool. And that's where Michael Considine was born, 1851. As he was growing up, he realized, as so many young men did back then, that there was no future for him in Ireland. If you think back to the middle of the 1800s, there was not much going on in Ireland. It was kind of a sad place, and people were trying to get out. And Michael Considine realized that if he was going to make something of himself in the world, it would need to be someplace other than where he was. So he got on a boat and he came across the ocean into the port of Boston. He was not there for very long before he realized that there were a lot more Irish lads looking for work in Boston in the 1800s than there was work for them. To put it in perspective, in a 20-year period, 1840 to 1860, 20% of the population of Ireland left. Think about that. That's 20%. That's a lot of people. It's almost 2 million people, just under 2 million, came to America. So they were sucking up the jobs. And Michael Considine realized that he was going to need to go someplace else. He had heard of the gold rush in California and the prosperity that was associated with it, so across the country he went. Michael Considine settled in San Francisco and spent the rest of his life in San Francisco. Michael Considine died in San Francisco in 1873. He was 22 years old. History does not tell us what Michael Considine died of. Back then, they didn't write such things down. We keep detailed records of those things today, but back then, you were either alive or you weren't. And that was pretty much what we know, except for this. Michael Considine, when he was dying, he knew that he was dying. What he was dying of was some form of something that was progressive, and he knew that he was sick, and he knew that he was not going to live a long time. And that made him very sad for a couple of reasons. The first obvious reason was he was 22 years old and he knew he was going to die. And the second reason was that he knew also that he was never going to get back to his village and see his family again. And back then, when the Irish came here, the immigrants came here, it was a mark of their success in America to gather enough money, enough resources to go back to Ireland and see your family again. Kind of go back and say, look at me. I left here, I left the poverty, I went to America. I made something of myself. I've been successful. It was almost like being a hero to your family and returning home. And he knew that that was never going to happen for him, and that made him sad as well. Not too long before he died, Michael Considine had a dream one night. It was a very, very vivid dream. And in the dream, he went back to Ireland. And while he was there in the dream, he did all the things that he would have done had he been able to go back to Ireland. He went and he visited the house that he grew up in, and he found his friends and his family and all the people. He even went and found his old girlfriend and went and visited her. It was very vivid, and when he woke up in the morning, he remembered the dream. So he wrote down a series of notes from the dream, his memories. And he took those memories and he turned them into a poem. This is the good part. Michael Considine had the foresight to take the poem, put it in an envelope, and mail it back to his nephew in Ireland. That is the reason the poem lived and survived all of these years. Because if he hadn't done that, it would have just been another paper on a table probably wherever he was living that would have been scooped up and tossed with everything else. But because he sent it back to his nephew, the poem survived. This is Michael Considine's poem. Last night, as I lay dreaming of pleasant days gone by, my mind was bent on rambling to errands I did fly. I stepped aboard a vision and I sailed off with a will till we gladly came to anchor at the cross on Spancel Hill. It being the 23rd of June, the day before the fair, Aaron's sons and daughters, they were all assembled there. The young, the old, the stout and the bold, they came to sport and kill. It's a curious combination at the fair on Spancel Hill. I went to see my old home, as every stone could tell. The old boy was just the same, the apple trees over the well. I miss my sister Ellen, my brothers Pat and Bill. There only were strange faces at the house on Spancel Hill. I went to see my neighbors to hear what they might say. The old were getting feeble, the young ones turning gray. I met with Taylor Quigley, he's brave as ever still. He used to mend my breeches when I lived on Spancel Hill. I took a flying visit to my first and only love. She's pure as any lily, she's gentle as a dove. She threw her arms around me, saying, Michael, I love you still. She's not the ranger's daughter, she's the pride of Spancel Hill. I stooped to kiss her, as I did in days of yore. She said, Michael, you're only joking, as you often were before. The cock crew in the morning, he crew both loud and shrill. I awoke in California, far, far from Spancel Hill. My vision faded and tears came to my eyes. I'd hoped to see that dear old land once more before I die. May the joyous King of Angels his choicest blessings spill on that glorious piece of nature, the cross on Spancel Hill. Thank you, thank you. Isn't that a great story? Okay. This is where I look out and I see people with repressed middle school memories. Because you saw one of these in middle school and you thought you were done with it forever. And you probably thought, and you were probably right. This was originally a school teacher's instrument, and those of a certain age, which would include most but not all of us in this room probably, had them in our music education, as part of our music education. Back in the late 1950s through the 1960s and into the early 1970s, the Oscar Schmidt Company, the company that was the commercial maker of auto harps, decided that what they would do is they would put auto harps in every middle school up and down the East Coast. They would give them to the schools. And now every music teacher would have one, and every child would be exposed to the auto harp. And every child would learn to love the auto harp, and when they get out of school, they'd want to buy one. And we'll sell lots and lots and lots of auto harps. So they made these black auto harps, and I know that Clinton is another old mill town, old New England mill town, and there's probably an old school building here that's still being used for something. And in the back corner of the music room, in a closet somewhere, you might even find a couple of those black auto harps, because they still turn up now, every now and again. They've been packed away someplace. They sounded horrible. They would not stay in tune, and they didn't last very long. They sounded horrible mostly because in order to do this, they needed to make them as cheaply as possible. If you understand the way that acoustic instruments work, the strings, you hit the string vibrates, it causes the wood to vibrate. The wood causes the air inside this box here to vibrate, and that's what you hear. Simple enough, except that when Oscar Schmidt did this, they made the auto harps out of plywood. And plywood has no resonating properties whatsoever. So they didn't stay in tune, and they weren't very stable because plywood wasn't going to hold everything nice and tight like it was supposed to. But they're still around, and should you uncover one someday, please do not bring it to my house. That has happened more than once. There will be and I will look out the window and there'll be somebody standing out there with a black auto harp in their hand. You're the guy that plays the auto harp? And yup, here. Thanks. They do have one redeeming value though. If you do run into one, they're really good at getting the fire pit roaring. They go up like nothing. So they were designed to be played flat. Strum. It didn't sound anything at all like it, but you get the concept. And it would, and then Sarah Carter got a hold of it in the Carter family band, and she put it up here. And somewhere in the 1980s, somebody, we're not real sure who, probably a Scotsman though, because we would never do anything the easy way, thought that there has to be something that we can do other than just strum this. So what I'm going to do for you tonight is I'm going to finger pick it. Just like you might finger pick a guitar or a banjo or any other stringed instrument. How hard can that be? Can you hear it okay?
Yes.
cool, isn't it? They want it. There are 37 strings. 37. You were counting, weren't you?
I was trying to.
You don't have to anymore. You can go back to sleep. 37 strings.
How long did you choose them?
I'm sorry?
How long does it take to tune them?
There's two answers to that question. When you put new strings on it, you're trying to bring everything up to pitch and get everything to settle in. It takes about 4 or 5 days for everything to settle to the point where it stays there, or stays close. Once it settles and it stays close, I check the tuning on this every day before every concert. And generally speaking, out of 37 strings, there might be somewhere between 8 and 10 that are off by just a tiny, tiny little bit. And if I had to do it, if I had to do a concert without tuning it, I probably could. This is a very, very stable instrument. It doesn't go out of tune a lot. Because this is not made out of plywood. This was handmade by a man in Pennsylvania. So it's very sturdy, it's very stable, and it was built to just kind of stay together. Does that answer your question, kind of?
Yes.
Yeah. Let's see if I play one that you might recognize, and if you don't, then I played it wrong. Everybody stares at my hands when I do this. I look up and everybody's, what is he doing? All right, so you're watching my right hand most of the time. Watch me this time and you'll notice I never, big exclamation point, never look at my right hand when I'm playing. If you see me look down, I'm looking down here to make sure I'm landing on the right button, because that's going to help. But over here, there's so many things going on, and I'm playing anywhere from 1 to 5 or 6 notes. Sometimes I'll play 2 with one finger at the same time. There's too many things going on for me to think about it and try and manage it. I'm just not that smart. So I just, just kind of tee it up and hit it sometime and go after it. And that's what I do. So you watch my hands, because I'm not going to. World War II was breaking out. And over in Scotland, on the west coast, southwest coast of Scotland, in an area that's known as the Argyll region. Regions in Scotland are like counties are here. And there's an Argyll region in Scotland, just like the socks or the sweater. And there was a man in a village called Campbellton. There was a man named George McIntyre. And George McIntyre was a piper in the village bagpipe band. Every village in Scotland to this day still has their own little village bagpipe band. Campbellton back then was no exception. George McIntyre was in it. But when the war was breaking out, he wanted to do what so many other young men did and go off and do his part, so he joined the British Army and went off to fight the war. He was not there for very long before he was captured, and he was held in a prisoner of war camp in Germany for the duration of the war. He spent his time in captivity playing his bagpipe tunes over and over and over again in his head mentally. He did that as a way to stay connected to his village, to keep his sanity and just give him something to do. It's what he had to do this, because otherwise he would just sit there and wonder what was going to happen next. One day, he wrote a bagpipe tune in his head. He composed it mentally. And when he got back to Campbellton at the end of the war, he taught it to the bagpipe band. And if you go to Scotland today and the bagpipe band is going down the street, you might hear this one. It doesn't get played much in America, but it does get played a lot over there. He calls the tune The Hills of Argyll. Okay. I'm gonna step out of Celtic mode for just a moment or two here. I was supposed to be here in December, and I was supposed to be doing some of this, some of the Christmassy type stuff. But obviously I wasn't here in December because I'm here now. So we're gonna stick one in there for you so you can just hear what the harp sounds like. And we won't tell anybody that I did this. It'll be like our secret. And Ellis will make sure that it sounds good on the TV. That's just pretty there, isn't it? It's just pretty. I have been blessed in my lifetime. I told you about my dad, who was a drummer. I started playing the drums when I was a year and a half or 2 years old. I was born in August, so my second Christmas I would have been about 16 months old, something like that. And I was given a marching drum. What 16-year-old boy doesn't want a marching drum? It was probably about as big as I was. I still have it. So I started there. Well, the point being, I can play a lot of musical instruments. I can, and I've been blessed. But when the house is dark and quiet, and it is just me and the cat that one of my sons left with me 13 years ago, he's coming back for it. And it's not that son with the DNA test, it's a different one. They all have issues. This is the instrument that I will pick up and just sit and play for myself, for my own amusement. And I'll just sit there sometimes for hours until my hands can't stand it anymore. They just hurt. It's the one I play for myself. So I'm glad that I get to play it for you today. So let us do this. Let us not forget Wales, because Wales is part of the United Kingdom.
I have a Welsh mother.
Okay. Are you part of the Welsh Association of New England?
No.
Okay. They wrote me a nasty letter one time.
Today is St. David's Day. No, yesterday is St.
Yeah. One of their members came and I didn't play anything from Wales, and they thought that I was intentionally missing them or something. So I'm going to play a couple Welsh tunes, and I'm going to see if I can kind of tie them together somehow into one big one. Looks easy, doesn't it?
I like to sit your hands in nice and I'm looking at you playing.
Well, yeah, but you know, you're looking at 25 years of this, or more, probably. And the first year plus was ugly. It was ugly, because it was probably the better part of 25 years ago. I sat out there in an audience one night. There's not a lot of people that can fingerpick this. We could probably all get on a bus and go somewhere together. But I sat out there one night, I was watching a guy do it, I was watching a guy fingerpick it, and I thought to myself, I like that. That is really cool. How hard can that be? Now, I'm a Scot, I told you that. Scots, if you know any Scots, we have like one speed, and it's straight ahead, we just keep going. I don't care how big the hill is or how big the wall is, I just keep going. But it was humbling, because at that point I already fingerpicked all kinds of instruments and played all kinds of things, and so I had some of the hand skills, but the fact that the harp that I was learning to fingerpick on had 36 strings, not 37. I just figured, well, it's just bigger and smaller and got more strings. How challenging? Well, it's really challenging. It really did. It took me well over a year before I felt like I could play anything for anybody on it. But over time, it's become my favorite, and it's taken me to a lot of places. I played the harp around Scotland. I have played it in different parts of the world. I played it all over the eastern part of the United States. I played it on an airplane sitting on the tarmac in the Denver airport one time. And I got on the airplane and the plane this was back in the day when you get on the airplane and the pilot was standing there looking at you and all that. And he said, "What's in the bag?" And I said, "It's on the harp." And he said, "Oh, you play the harp?" And I said, "Yeah." And all of a sudden he came back and he said, something to the effect of, "Well, we're going to be sitting here for a while, why don't you play the harp?" Okay. So down the harp came and we played the harp. So thank you for indulging me. Let me play it for you tonight. The Scottish Army, when Scotland had their own army prior to being merged into the British Army, they were always led into battle by a bagpiper. It was just a tradition. The bagpiper was always the first one in. That started way back, in the days of William Wallace and all of that. But you have to remember that back then, the wars were fought with rocks and sticks. They weren't fought with artillery and missiles and guns and all that. But the pipers were always the brave ones. They were always the first ones in. And there was one particular battle in the 1700s where they were led in by a mass of pipers. The idea was, we're just going to send a whole bunch of bagpipers after the English. They're just all going to get scared and run. For the most part, they did. They just heard this noise and they got out of there. So, as I told you before, they write tunes to commemorate different things. So somebody wrote this tune to commemorate the bravery and the gallantry and all of that, and they called it 100 Pipers. And it's a very famous Scottish song, and it has words, 100 pipers, hurrah, hurrah, 100 pipers, we're off to war, and all this. And it's a wonderful little bagpipe tune. As happens so often in the Celtic lands, when one of the nations comes up with a tune, they piggyback it. Piggybacking is like we talked about green sleeves and What Child Was This? We piggyback one set of words onto the same tune and we just call it something else. So the Irish got a hold of 100 Pipers and they decided to write their own words for it. So I'm going to play you this very majestic Scottish going into battle tune. But the Irish call their version, "The Hair Fell Off My Coconut." I have no idea why. But if you know anybody that's Irish, you can maybe ask them. So the Scotland version is kind of majestic, and the Irish version, I don't know. But it goes like this. The hair fell off my coconut. You like that one, sir, do you? special, and my promise to you is that before we're done tonight, I will pick that one up one more time and play it for you again. But now we're going to move on. In the 1700s, way back then, when the sailing ships would leave the various ports of call in the United Kingdom, their home ports, and they would go off to do their trade around the world, they could be gone for upwards of 7 years. 7 years. That sounds crazy, doesn't it? But you're thinking about it today. Think about it in the context of 300 or 400 years ago. You're on a ship that leaves a port in Ireland, it's loaded with something that's going to Boston. It takes a couple of months to come across the ocean. Then you have to wait your turn in line to unload. Then you have to wait your turn in line to pick up another load in Boston and take that wherever it's going, which could be South America, it could be China, it could be, who knows, it could be anywhere. And pretty soon you can find yourself hopscotching away around the world and not getting back to where you started for a very long time. It's just the way that it worked. So let's look at it a little bit differently. You are the wife or the girlfriend of an Irish sailor, or Celtic sailor, and you walk him down to the pier. You kiss him goodbye. He goes up the ramp onto the boat. Boat sails away. You wave. He waves. And then you go home. And you wait for up to 7 years to see if he's coming back. There were no cell phones. There was no internet. There was no communication back then. Either he came back or he didn't. And if he didn't come back, it was quite likely that you didn't know why. Maybe the ship sunk. Maybe the pirates captured the ship and killed him. Maybe he found somebody he liked better in a different place. I'm sure all of those things happened. But basically, gone is gone. So, as I told you earlier, when something happens in the Celtic land, somebody's going to write a song about it. This is a song about an English sailor. An English sailor. His name is John Riley. Fair young maid in her garden, strange young man came riding by, said, fair young maid, will you marry me? This then, sir, was her reply. No, kind sir, I cannot marry thee. I've a love, he sails the deep salt sea. He's been gone 7 years, still no man shall marry me. And he said to her, what if he's died or in a battle slain? What if he's drowned in a deep salt sea? What if he's found another love? He and his new love both married me. And she replied back to him, if he's died or in a battle flame, I will die when the moon doth wane. If he's drowned in the deep salt sea, I will be true to his memory. He picked her up in his arms, kisses gave her 1, 2, and 3, said, weep no more, my own true love, I am your love, lost John Riley. Weep no more, my own true love, I am your love, lost John Riley. expecting another sad one, weren't you? That one had a happy ending. Okay, so you've been sitting quite nicely for almost an hour, but not quite, but thank you. We have come to the part that you've been waiting for the last 56 or 7 minutes, whatever it's been. This is the time when you get to sing for me. Won't this be fun, eh? But it's simple stuff. I'm going to give you 5 words, part of a chorus. Just 5 words. You can do this. You can do this.
He sure does.
I have done this probably 1,000 times. That's the first time that's ever happened. I see a lot of people looking at the floor and counting their fingers when I do it, but in any event, you're gonna have 5 words. You're gonna do 5 words, and you can do this. I'm gonna give you 5 words of the chorus, but I want to tell you the story that goes with it, of course. I told you about my dad. I told you a little bit about my dad. My dad's name was Donald, very Scottish name. And he had a very, very good friend, also named Donald, because it's a very common Scottish name. The other Donald was also a Scot. And when I was a lad growing up, Donald and Donald would get together in the house, and they would listen to the records and the bagpipe records and Scottish folk songs and all that together. And quite often their friend Johnny Walker would join them. You know him, do you? And they would sing the songs, and when this one song popped up in the rotation, I knew that it was going to get played over and over and over again because they just kept repeating the same song. It's a song about a man named Donald, and they just kind of envisioned that it was written for them. So this Donald lived up on the Isle of Skye, which is on the northwest coast of Scotland. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful place. And many, many years ago, this Donald left Skye on a vacation, holiday, and he went down to London wearing his kilt. And the people in London back then had never seen such a thing. They weren't comfortable with a man in a kilt. They had no idea what that was all about. And everywhere he went, the women would look at him and just say, shook their heads, and they would say, Donald, where are your trousers? Because they expected him to be wearing trousers instead of a kilt. The Scottish pronunciation of the word trousers is trousers. So we will sing it as trousers tonight. And you're going to help me sing a song about Donald and his kilt and his lack of trousers. You're going to help me with this. So I will sing the first line of the chorus, and you will sing back to me the second line of the chorus. And then I will do the rest. Fair enough? Right? Easy enough. You get 5 words. My part, first line of the chorus is, let the wind blow high. Ma'am, you want to share with us what you're laughing at back there?
Donald stole his kilt.
Just be glad I'm not wearing my kilt tonight. And you will sing back to me, let the wind blow low. Alright? Let the wind blow low. That's your part. I got the rest. It goes just like this. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Ready? Nice and loud. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Perfect. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? I just come down from the Isle of Skye. I'm no very big, I'm awful shy. The lassies shout when I go by, Donald, where's your trousers? Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, what are your trousers? When I went down to London town and I had some fun in the underground, the ladies turned their heads around, saying, Donald, what are your trousers? Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Through the streets in the kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassie took me to a wall. It was slippery in the hall, and I was afraid that I might fall because I wasn't wearing my trousers. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. Through the streets in my kilt I'll go. All the lassies shout, hello, Donald, where's your trousers? Well, the lassies want me, everyone. Let them catch me if they can. You cannot put the blinks on a Highland man, because they won't wear no trousers. Let the wind blow high, let the wind blow low. You did so well that I'm going to reward you with another one. This time we're going to do an Irish sing-along. And this time, instead of 5 words, piece of the chorus, you're going to get the whole chorus. Lucky you. So this is your part. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. I'm gonna marry Mary. Mary to take care of me. We'll all be feeling merry when I marry Mary Mac. All right, that's your part. I got the rest. You ready? No, huh? All right. You're a nice bunch. I'll make it easy for you. I will sing the first part of the chorus. I will sing Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. You will sing back to me. My father's making me marry Mac. My father's making me marry Mac. You ready? Here we go. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. That was my fault. I apologize. I forgot to ask you to do it together. I'll show you how it goes. You ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. Ready? Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. That was good. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling Mary when I marry Mac. I'm counting on you, sir. Pay attention. Well, there is a little lass, her name is Mary Mac. Make no mistake, she's a girl I want to tap. And a lot of other fellas try to get up on her track. And I'm thinking that I'd have to get up early. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary for my Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling Mary when I marry Mac. Well, Mary and her mother go an awful lot together. In fact, you hardly ever see the one without the other. And all the people wonder if it's Mary or her mother, or the both of them together that are important. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. I'm gonna marry Mary. I'll be Mary when I marry Mary. I was reading lips that time. I knew somebody weren't going to finish. One more time. Mary Mac's father's making Mary Mac marry me. My father's making me Mary Mac. I'm gonna marry Mary, so I'm Mary to take care of me. Well, I'll be feeling Mary when I marry Mac. Thank you.
What was that instrument you were just playing?
That was a bouzouki. Bouzouki, B-O-U-Z-O-U-K-I. Bouzouki. Yeah. Scary, isn't it? It's another one of those instruments like a banjo. You're never quite sure if it's in tune or not. But I think it was tonight. Are you having a good time tonight? Are you having fun? Thank you. Please don't thank me. I had really very little to do with this. I just showed up. Marie put this together. Obviously, I have been here before years ago, a couple times I think. Marie put this together for Christmas time, and then I got sick and couldn't come. But I'm here tonight, and Ellis is with us tonight filming this, and thank you to him for his service to the community and what you're doing for them. Ellis. Thank you. You'll be able to see yourself on TV, on YouTube someday. That'd be exciting. And but please, if you're having a good time, please, thank Marie, and please support your library. It is so important. Libraries, they're fighting an uphill battle right now with the internet and all those different things. They're doing things like this to keep the community going, so it's important that you support them. So I'm going to keep going for a little bit longer, I do have in the back, just as a matter of information, the world, we've heard about all supply chain things in the world. Well, sometimes the supply chain works backwards, yes, and now they're sending CDs back to me from the distributors because they're collecting them back from the places that they were for sale, and they put them in boxes and send them back to me, so I didn't think there were any more left, and they're just coming back. So I have a few CDs in the back, and If you buy one and take it home, I don't have to. So, so thank you for that. I thought I was all done with CDs after the Christmas season, and sometime in the middle of February, this big box showed up at my house. Surprise! We collected some more. So I'm going to play for you an English children's song from the 1600s. This is a pretty one. It's called The Elfin Knight, and I will spell that for you. ELFINKNIGHT, Elfin Knight. Loosely translated, that means small boy or wee little lad. Let's see if I can get it. Who's going to be the brave one? Tell me that they think I finally lost it. Because I told you I was going to play the Elfin Knight, and I played something else, didn't I?
Child Ballad number 2.
Very good. Very good. The gentleman in the back. No, I played the right song, didn't I?
You did?
I did. The song that you know is, how do you know that?
I looked up in Wiki.
All right, so I was giving you credit for being brilliant. But yeah, the song that you know is Scarborough Fair, and everybody knew that. As soon as I started to play that little bit in the beginning, everybody knew what I was playing. Started its musical life as the Elfin Knight, or Child's Ballad number 2. He's absolutely right. And over time, morphed and changed, because that's what songs do, the folk process and all that. Songs change over time, and around 1900, it stopped being known as the Elfin Knight, started to be known just as Scarborough Fair. And if you go back and you look up, obviously you could look up the Elfin Knight, and you could find the original words. And you can read through the words, and you'll find bits and pieces of the original Elfin Knight, and you'll just find little bits and pieces that survived all these years, and there's someplace in Scarborough Fair. There'll be enough of it there that you'll know that there's a connection between the two things. So that's very good, sir. Very, very good.
It's also road number 12.
All right. 1855. John Hunt left his family home in Ireland, and he came to the United States. He settled in Aberdeen, Maryland. He got a job, he got married, he had a family, bought a house, he did all those things. John Hunt spent the rest of his life in Aberdeen, Maryland. John Hunt died in Aberdeen, Maryland, and John Hunt is buried in Aberdeen, Maryland. As I tell you the story and play for you the song that goes with it, please keep in mind that when John Hunt came here in 1855, he was 13 years old. Let us think about that for a minute. Let us think about our 13-year-old child, or our 13-year-old grandchild, or our 13-year-old niece or nephew, or just a 13-year-old kid down the street. Leaving home, going to a country, different country, where they knew nobody, and they had no idea at all what they were going to do when they got there. But knowing at the age of 13, if you were going to survive in the world, this is something that you have to do. That was the plight of the immigrants back then. John Hunt came here at 13. and he never went back to Ireland, and he never saw his family again. Back in Ireland, John Hunt's father, a man named Brian, every year would go next door, because Brian Hunt couldn't read or write, so he would go next door to the schoolmaster's house, and he would dictate to him a letter, kind of like the old Christmas letter thing. He would tell him, you know, all the comings and goings of the family, who got married, who had kids, who died, who bought a house, all of those things went into the family letter. And off it went to John, and every letter included a request for John to come back and see his family, and he never did. Let's skip ahead to about 1972, when a man named Peter Jones is cleaning out a house in Aberdeen, Maryland. And in that house, he finds a stack of old papers. And those papers were the letters that had been written to John Hunt over 100 years earlier. There's 21 or 22, I've forgotten now, north of 20 of those letters in the series. And he took all of them, and he laid them out chronologically, and then he kind of morphed them all together and turned them into something that we know today as the Ballad of Kilkelly, Ireland, the story of the Hunt family. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1860, my dear and loving son John. Your good friend the schoolmaster Pat McNamara, so good to write these words down. Your brothers have all gone to find work in England. The house is so empty and sad. The crop of potatoes is sorely infected, a third to a half of them bad. Your sister Bridget and Patrick O'Donnell are going to be married in June. Your mother says not to work on the railroad. Be sure and come on home soon. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1870, my dear and loving son John. Hello to your missus, to your 4 children, may they grow healthy and strong. Our Michael has got in a wee bit of trouble. I don't think that he'll ever learn. Because of the dampness, there's no turf to speak of. We have nothing to burn. Bridget is happy and ain't the child for her, you know. She's got 6 of her own. You say you found work, you don't say what kind. When are you coming home? Kilkelly, Ireland, 1880, Michael and John, my sons. I'm sorry to give you the very sad news. Your mother's passed on. We buried her down at the church in Kilkelly. Your brothers and Bridget were there. You don't have to worry, she died very quickly. Remember her in your prayers. It's so good to hear that Michael's returning. With money he's sure to buy land. The crop has been poor, people are selling at any price that they can. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1890, my dear and loving son John. I suppose that I must be close on to 80. 30 years you've been gone. Because of all of the money you sent me, I'm still living out on my own. Michael has built himself a fine house. Bridget's daughters are grown. Thank you for sending your family picture. They're lovely young women and men. Why don't you think about coming to visit? A joy to see you again. Kilkelly, Ireland, 1892, my dear brother John. sorry I didn't write sooner to tell you that Father is gone. He was living with Bridget. She said he was cheerful, healthy right up to the end. You should have seen him play with the grandchildren of Pat McNamara, your friend. We buried him alongside of Mother down at the Kilkelly churchyard. He was a strong and feisty old man, considering his life was so hard. It's funny the way he kept talking about you. He called for you at the end. Why don't you think about coming to visit? We'd all like to see you again. That one is special. That one is very, very special. And over the years and the decades, it has attached itself to me in all kinds of ways. And it's one that I have some level of notoriety for, I suppose. And it's one that gets played every day, no matter where I am, no matter what I'm doing. Wherever I sit and play, that story gets told and that song gets played, and it always has, and it always will. About 17-ish years ago, I had the opportunity to see the letters.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to transcribe the letters. It was a bit of a challenge, because the paper was, you can imagine, yellow and folded and faded, and all smudged and all those things. And there's places where I had to guess at words, and there's places where I left a blank space, but I got most of it. And I tell you all that to tell you this. If you, up in the back, there's also some cards back there for you to take with you. And Van is back there with the cards. And on the back of those cards is a whole lot of stuff. One of the things that's on there is my website address. And if you go to my website, you will find that there's a page there for Kilkelly, Ireland. And on that page, you will find the transcriptions of the first and last letter. And you can read them, and you can get an idea of how it was and what it was like. And if that fires up your curiosity, also on that page is a little email button thing that you can push, and it should pop up an email window right on your computer, addressed to me. And my gift to you, my thanks for coming out tonight, would be to send you a PDF file of all of the letters, so that you could have all of the letters. I share them with as many people as I can. So if you have any interest at all, please just take a moment and do that, and I'm happy to fire them off to you when I get the sheet.
Breaks my heart just to hear about them. I don't think I could read them.
Yeah, but you know, it's because I'm the source on the internet for the letters, I'm pretty much it. I hear from people all over the world.
Wow.
Because the song is known all over the world, and somebody will Google it and they'll find me. And so I send the letters, they send a PDF file of letters everywhere. About 7 years ago, I got an email from a gentleman just outside of Atlantic City, New Jersey, a small little town way down that bottom corner of New Jersey. And he had Googled Kilkelly letters and found me and what I sent him the file, and of course I did. And he got back to me pretty quickly. Remember the part of the song about the brother Michael who got in trouble and he came back and got a house and all? Michael had a pretty prominent role in the song. This is Michael Hunt's great-grandson.
Oh.
And the Hunt family did not know that the letters existed in any form. They knew that they existed at some point because somebody wrote a song, but they just figured that something happened to them and they were gone. So I was able to give the Hunt family copies of the letters. And so the story that I told you tonight about John Hunt, much of that came from my correspondence back and forth with him over the years. Sadly, COVID took him from us last year. But he was able to fill me in on a lot. And if you go to the website, you'll find on there, there's some pictures that he sent to me of his research in Kilkelly, Ireland. It's just a magical story, and it's very, very special. So think about it. It's worth reading the letters. You'll be okay. And yes, it's emotional, and yes, it's sad. And every night when I play that song, I look out at the room, and I look to see if there's any emotion in the room. And there always is, which is good. Because if I ever look out and there's no emotion in the room, I'll know I'm not telling the story very well. And that's on me. Well, I have played that song, as you can imagine, in all kinds of settings and all kinds of scenarios. And I have played it in rooms full of Irish grandmothers. You don't have to worry about the emotion in a room full of Irish grandmothers. You kind of have to worry about getting carried away in the wave. I will share with you something that I have learned about an Irish grandmother from playing in front of rooms full of them. An Irish grandmother can hide an entire box of Kleenex on her person. What? I'll start playing the song, she's down here, and she's up here. And in the front of the room, when you look back, it looks like it's snowing back there. Kleenex. No, please. It has been my privilege, my honor, and my joy to come to Clinton and play for you tonight. Thank you for sharing your evening with me. I promised you that I would come back to this, and I will. I will play you two more. The first one is an old Irish sailor's tune. It is called South Wind. And then we will finish our adventure off tonight with the song that ends the Scottish sessions all over the world. And we always play the same song at the end. It's just, it doesn't matter if you're here, or if you're in Scotland, or where you are, if the Scottish guys get together and play, this one goes last. You'll know it. It gets played at the end of the year in the United States. It was written by the poet Robert Burns. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your support for me, but more importantly, your support for your library. Thank you, thank you. Thank you.
They played my very favorite Irish song, Spancel Hill. Thank you, I love that song.
People are selling at any price that they can. Kill Kelly Ireland, 18 and 19, my dear and loving Shrunjan. I suppose that I must be close on to 80. 30 years you've been gone. Because of all of the money you sent me, I'm still living out on my own. defending your family.